So remember last time we talked about factoring polynomials? So this is just what we did last time, pretty much exactly, where you had the problem, you divided by the factor, and when you followed these steps, you eventually got from this to that. So this video is about solving polynomials. So the point of solving polynomials is once you have an equation like this, it's really hard to tell what the graph will look like or what the solutions are. The solutions when we solve a polynomial, or to solve a polynomial, means to find all the x-intercepts. So the way we do that is, notice that in a graph, whenever I have an x-intercept, I write it as like this is -5, 0, or this is 4, 0, or this is 3 or 2, 0, or something like that. Notice that all the y's are zeros. So when a function f of a number x has I don't know why my thing isn't working. F of x, when it's equal to 0, means it's a solution. So if I have this is true, if this is true, then x is a solution. So if I want, for example, let's say I have f of x equal to whatever I had at the top. What was it? X cubed plus 5x squared minus 2x minus 24. Let's say I have this equation here. This doesn't tell me anything about if I want it to equal to 0, because I want it to equal to 0 from here. But because I was able to factor it, I am able to say, okay, 0 is equal to x minus 2 times x plus 3 plus x. Oh, that should have been a 4 plus 4. Here we go. Times x plus 4. So now I can say if one of these is equal to 0, everything else is equal to 0 too, because anything times 0 is equal to 0. So I'm going to make a new page. I'm going to write down what we wrote over there. So we have 0 is equal to x minus 2, x plus 3, and x plus 4. So remember, if one of these is equal to 0, all of them are, everything becomes 0. Because if this is like 0 times 100, it's equal to 0. Or if I have 0 times 20, it's equal to 0. Or anything times 0 is equal to 0. So that means I either need x minus 2 equal to 0, x plus 3 equal to 0, or x plus 4 equal to 0. And so here, all I have to do is solve for x. So if x minus 2 is equal to 0, I add 2. Actually, I'm going to do that in red. Then I add 2 to both sides, and I end up with x equals positive 2. Here, if I have x plus 3 equal to 0, then I have to subtract 3 from both sides, and I end up with x equals -3. And here I have x plus 4 equals to 0. I subtract 4 from both sides, and I end up with x equals -4. So these are called the solutions to the equation. And honestly, once you've done that, you've done it. You've solved a polynomial. And that's really all this is once you do these 3 steps, divide by the factor that you've already given, and once you get down to a quadratic, you use the quadratic factoring, and then you write your answer. Then the 4th step would be to just solve for when x is equal, or when the factor is equal to 0. So we'll just write the steps again. So step number 1, divide by the factor. And sometimes you might not be given the factor, and we'll talk about in a later video, in a later lesson, how you're able to find those factors using the equation. So the first step is to divide by the factor. Second step, once you get to a quadratic, Once you get a quadratic, you use factoring quadratics process. I'm just going to write factoring quads process. And that's that 7 steps that we talked about before. Number 3 is to write the factors together. And I'm actually going to add just a little bit. Write the factors together and solve and put equal to 0. Sorry, put equal to 0. Step number 4 is solve for x in each factor equal to 0. So step number 4 is just what we did above. It's this step here, where we set every single one equal to 0, and then we found what x is equal to. So here we had x minus 2 equals 0, x plus 3 equals 0, and x plus 4 equals 0. And that's all it is. That's solving solving polynomials. If I was going to put it in a graph, here's my graph here. Because I know x is equal to 2, -3, and -4, I would find x equals 2 and put a little dot there. My pen really hates me. I put one there at 2, and then I would have another one at -3 from this one, and then I'd have another one at -4. And using end behavior, because the leading coefficient is positive, it's going to look something like this. It's not a perfect picture, but this is why the factors in solving are useful, because it tells us the x-intercepts. So go ahead and pause the video, make sure you know all those steps. If you have any questions,